I want you to picture a scenario. It's really mundane. You're in front of the bathroom mirror, maybe shaving, maybe just washing your face. You turn your head, the light hits you just right, and your fingers find something. A lump. Right there, near your jaw.
And your stomach just drops?
It drops to the floor. It's that instant cold sweat moment. Your brain just defaults to panic.
It does. We're wired to think new lump equals worst case scenario.
Exactly. But the thing that really grabbed me in the research you sent over is that for this specific part of the body, the salivary glands, our intuition is actually, it's statistically backwards.
It's completely backwards. We're going to get into benign salivary gland tumors today. And you're right, the fear is real, but the data, that tells a very different story. We're going to look at why they form, some of the bizarre biology going on inside them. I mean, tumors that literally grow their own bones.
Right.
And the really high stakes anatomy involved in getting them out.
So, just to set the stage for everyone, our sources for this are a mix of medical transcripts, ENT surgical guides, and pathology reports. The mission is to really decode the rules of thumb surgeons use, because in this world, size matters, but not how you think.
That's the first big aha moment for most people. I mean, usually in oncology, bigger is worse, right? A large mass is bad news.
Yeah. Okay.
But with salivary glands, we have what I call the inverse rule of size.
Okay, let's break that down, because when I first read it, I had to double check I wasn't reading it wrong.
So just map out the geography in your head for a second. You've got major glands and minor glands. The biggest one, the main player, is the parotid gland.
That's the one right in front of the ear, the one that swells up with mumps.
That's the one. It's the largest salivary gland. And because it's the biggest, it gets the most tumors. Something like 80% of all salivary tumors pop up in the parotid.
Okay.
But here's the twist. Of those tumors, 80% of them are benign.
So if you find a lump in the biggest gland, the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor that it's not cancer.
Exactly. Now, let's move down a bit. You have the submandibular gland, which is tucked right under your jawbone.
Smaller.
Much smaller. And the odds change. Tumors there are less common, but the benign rate drops to about 50-50.
Wow. So you've gone from an 80% safety net to a coin toss just by moving a few inches.
And then you get to the danger zone, the sublingual glands under your tongue, and all those thousands of tiny minor salivary glands.
I didn't even know those were a thing.
They're microscopic glands all over your lips, the roof of your mouth, your cheeks. You don't know they're there.
Until something grows in one.
Right. And here the rule is pretty brutal. If you find a tumor in one of those tiny glands, say a little lump on your palate, the statistics just completely flip. Now, up to 90% of those are malignant.
That's incredible. So the smaller the gland, the bigger the worry.
Precisely. It's a really useful rule for doctors. A big lump on the side of the face. We're concerned, sure, but we're optimistic. A tiny hard nodule on the lip. We are moving fast.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's talk about the tumors themselves. The sources really zeroed in on two main types, and the first one, the name alone, pleomorphic adenoma, sounds like a shapeshifter from a sci-fi movie.
It's the most common one, and shapeshifter is a perfect way to put it. Pleomorphic just means varied forms. You'll also hear it called a mixed tumor.
And this is where the biology just gets so weird. The transcript said they have a biphasic nature. Epithelial cells, okay, I get that. But then it listed mesenchymal components like cartilage, bone, fat, and a saliva gland.
It sounds like a mistake in the body's code, doesn't it?
It sounds like a total glitch. How does a gland that makes spits suddenly decide, you know what, I'm going to build some cartilage today?
It is a glitch, a really fascinating one, and it comes down to this one specific cell type called the myoepithelial cell.
Myo, like muscle.
Exactly. Normally, these cells are like little muscles that hug the ducts and squeeze saliva out. They have a job to do, but in a pleomorphic adenoma, they go rogue. They do this thing called mesenchymal metaplasia.
Which means?
It means they forget what they are. They kind of revert back to a stem cell-like state, and they start differentiating into all sorts of other tissues. They start building a framework, a stroma, that looks and feels like cartilage or even bone.
So these confused little worker cells suddenly think they're construction workers, and they start building this house of cards made of bone inside your cheek.
That is a great analogy. It's a structural Frankenstein. Under a microscope, it's just chaos. You see normal-looking ducts right next to islands of bluish cartilage. That's why it's mixed.
So what does that feel like? If you have this Frankenstein's monster tumor growing, is it painful?
Almost never, and that's a huge clue. Pain is a red flag because cancer tends to invade nerves. These things just push. They just slowly push everything else out of the way. So a slow-growing, painless, firm lump.
The sources mentioned a couple of physical signs, almost like little tricks doctors use. I love these.
They do feel a bit like parlor tricks, but they're pure anatomy. The first one is called the curtain sign.
Okay, walk me through it.
So your parotid gland is wrapped in this really tough sheath tissue, the deep cervical fascia, and that fascia is anchored like really tightly to your cheekbone, the zygomatic arch.
So there's this tight sheet of tissue hanging down over the gland, a curtain.
Exactly. Now, if a tumor is growing behind that curtain and you try to push the lump upwards with your finger, it can't go. It hits that anchor point on the bone. It physically cannot move above the cheekbone.
So if I can push the lump way up towards my temple.
It's probably not a parotid tumor. It's probably a skin cyst or a lymph node sitting on top of that fascia. It fails the curtain sign.
And the other one was the earlobe sign.
This one's visual.
Yeah.
The tail of the parotid gland sits right under and behind the jaw. As a tumor there grows, it runs out of room, so it pushes the only thing it can. The soft tissue of the ear. It lifts the earlobe up and out.
So you could look at someone straight on, and one earlobe is just sort of flaring out.
It's subtle, but once you see it, it's a dead giveaway for a parotid tumor.
Now that's the lump you can see. But the scariest part in the transcripts was about the iceberg concept.
Yes. This is where the anatomy gets really critical. The parotid gland is in a sphere. It's shaped more like a dumbbell. You have the superficial lobe, the part on your cheek.
The part we've been talking about.
Right. And then you have a deep lobe that tucks in behind your jawbone, connected by this narrow little waist of tissue.
And tumors can hide back there.
About 10% of them do. And think about it, the jawbone is in the way. It can't grow outwards, so it has to grow.
Inwards.
Inwards, toward your throat. It squeezes through this little gap called Patey's stylomandibular tunnel.
So you could have a big tumor growing, and you'd look completely normal from the outside.
Your face would look totally normal, but you might start snoring really badly, or develop sleep apnea, or your voice might change. You get that hot potato voice.
Because there's a mass literally pushing your tonsil into your airway.
Exactly. The doctor looks in your mouth, and one tonsil is shoved clear over to the middle. It's the iceberg. Most of the mass is hidden.
That is terrifying. But here's the thing that really stood out about this tumor. The danger isn't just having it, it's removing it wrong. The sources were so clear. Do not enucleate.
That is the absolute golden rule of this surgery. Do not just shell it out.
Which feels wrong. It's a benign ball. Why can't you just scoop it out?
Well, because of those confused cells. The tumor has a capsule, yes, but it's a weak one. Under the microscope, you can see it sends out these little pseudopods,
False feet.
like tiny microscopic fingers of tumor that punch right through the capsule into the healthy gland around it.
Oh, so if a surgeon just peels it out right along that capsule.
They're guaranteed to leave those microscopic fingers behind. They snap them off, leaving little nests of tumor cells in the surgical bed.
And I'm guessing those don't just go away.
They wait, and it's a nightmare. The patient comes back 10, maybe 15 years later. But it's not one lump, it's 20.
Multicentric returns.
We call it seeding, like you spilled seeds all over the area. It comes back as all these little hard nodules, and they are so much harder to remove. And worse, they have a much higher risk of finally turning malignant.
Carcinoma ex pleomorphic adenoma.
Right. A benign problem becomes a malignant crisis, all because that first surgery was done the wrong way.
Okay, let's pivot from the shapeshifter to the rule breaker. The second tumor, Warthin's tumor. It feels like the total opposite.
It really is. It's the second most common, but it breaks almost every rule we just set up.
Okay, so profile check. Salivary tumors are more common in women, right?
Warthin's has a strong male preponderance.
Tumors can show up in different glands.
Warthin's is incredibly picky. It is found exclusively in the parotid gland, almost never anywhere else. And it has a favorite spot, the tail, the very bottom of the gland.
And where most tumors are just a single lump.
Warthin's is the one most likely to be bilateral on both sides of the face, about 10% of the time.
But the real kicker with this one, and this feels like a public service announcement, is the cause. It's not just a glitch. This one has a trigger.
It's the smoking gun, literally. There is a massive, undeniable link to cigarette smoking. Smokers are something like 8 times more likely to develop a Warthin's tumor.
8 times. That's a huge multiplier. Do we know why?
The thinking is it's the constant irritation from the smoke, either flowing up the ducts or from nicotine in the system. It triggers a change in the duct lining.
The description of what it looks like is, well, it's very memorable. The notes just said motor oil.
Pathologists have a flair for the dramatic. A pleomorphic adenoma is solid, whitish, but a Warthin's is often a cyst. And when you cut it open, out comes this thick, brown, sludgy fluid.
It looks just like used motor oil.
Exactly. If a surgeon sticks a needle in a lump and pulls back a syringe full of motor oil, the diagnosis is basically made right there.
And under the microscope, it's also totally different. These big, bright pink cells called oncocytes.
And this goes way back to biology class. They're bright pink because they are absolutely jam-packed with mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell.
You got it.
Yeah.
These cells are just buzzing with metabolic activity. But here's the truly weird part. All these pink cells are surrounded by immune tissue, a lymphoid stroma.
Why would there be immune tissue inside a tumor?
This leads to the origin story, which is my favorite bit of trivia here. It's called the heterotopia theory.
Okay, unpack that.
Go back to when you were an embryo. The parotid gland is actually the last salivary gland to form. It's late to the party. By the time it starts growing, the lymph nodes in your neck and face have already developed.
So the gland just grows around them.
It completely envelops them. So adults have lymph nodes trapped inside their parotid glands.
Like a tree growing around a rock.
Perfect analogy. The theory is that during this process, little bits of salivary duct tissue get trapped inside those lymph nodes.
So a Warthin's tumor isn't really a tumor of the gland. It's a tumor of salivary tissue that gets stuck inside a lymph node that gets stuck inside the gland.
It's a Russian nesting doll of anatomy. And that's why you see all that immune tissue mixed in. It's the leftover lymph node that the tumor grew inside of.
That is absolutely wild.
And it explains why it's only in the parotid. The other glands form earlier, so they don't trap lymph nodes, no trapped nodes, no Warthin's.
Okay, so we've got the shapeshifter and the rule breaker. Let's get practical.
Yeah.
You find a lump, you go to the doctor. How do you figure out which one it is before surgery?
First, you check for red flags. If the lump is painful, or, and this is the absolute biggest one, if your face feels numb or you can't move one side of it,
Facial nerve paralysis.
that is a 5-alarm fire. Benign tumors push the nerve. Malignant tumors invade the nerve. Paralysis almost always means cancer.
Okay, so if my face works fine and it doesn't hurt, what's next? What are the tests?
Ultrasound is step 1. It's quick, easy, tells us if it's solid or cystic. Then, almost always, an FNAC.
Fine needle aspiration.
Yep, a tiny needle. We suck out a few cells, put them on a slide. That's usually enough to tell the difference between the mixed up chaos of a pleomorphic or the pink oncocytes of a Warthin's.
An MRI, when do you need that?
MRI is for the iceberg. If I can't feel the whole tumor, I think it's diving deep, I need that MRI to see the dumbbell shape. I have to know where it ends before I can plan a surgery.
There was one other test, just for Warthin's. A nuclear medicine scan.
This is a really cool callback to the biology. Remember all those mitochondria?
The powerhouses.
They're hungry, they burn a lot of energy. So we can inject a radioactive tracer, technetium-99 meter. Because Warthin's tumors are so packed with mitochondria, they just suck that tracer right up.
So the tumor just glows on the scan.
It lights up like a Christmas tree, a hot spot. Most other tumors are cold. So it's a neat trick that uses the tumor's own biology against it.
So clever. Okay, so diagnosis is made. It's benign. But it has to come out. What happens now?
Now it's surgery. And there's no other option, really. No pill, no radiation, just surgery.
But this is not simple. This is high stakes real estate.
The highest stakes. And it's all because of one single structure. The facial nerve.
The nerve that lets us smile, frown.
Everything. Close your eyes, raise your eyebrows, wrinkle your nose, and that nerve leaves the skull and runs directly through the middle of the parotid gland.
It's not just sitting underneath it.
No, it branches out inside the gland like the roots of a tree. The tumor is often growing right in between those branches.
So the surgery isn't just taking out a lump. It's like diffusing a bomb where the wires are your ability to smile.
It's a meticulous dissection. The standard operation, a superficial parotidectomy, means we have to find the main trunk of the nerve first. And then, very carefully, we peel the gland off of each tiny nerve branch one by one.
And if you slip,
If you stretch or nick a branch, the patient wakes up and that part of their face doesn't move. They can't smile on one side or close their eye. It's usually temporary, but it is terrifying for everyone involved.
what about those iceberg tumors? The deep ones.
That requires a total conservative parotidectomy. We take the top lobe off, which exposes the nerve branches. Then we gently lift the nerves up and remove the deep part of the gland from underneath them.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It takes a lot of patience. It's a slow, careful operation.
I saw mention of a newer technique, extracapsular dissection. The notes made it sound a bit controversial.
It is. The idea is, for a small tumor, why expose the whole nerve? Why not just carefully cut around the tumor with a small margin? It's faster.
The pseudopods, the little fingers.
That's the whole argument against it. If you cut too close, you risk leaving those cells behind. You risk recurrence. Most surgeons agree it's only for very select small tumors. For a big pleomorphic adenoma, it's just too risky.
And the submandibular gland, is that an easier surgery?
Oh, much easier. The facial nerve runs nearby, but not through it. So you just have to protect the nerve branches around it and you can take the whole gland out. Much more straightforward.
So zooming out on all this, we've gone from the panic of finding a lump to the weird biology of these Frankenstein tumors to this incredibly delicate surgery. What's the final takeaway for you?
For me, it really challenges what we mean by the word harmless.
How so?
We hear benign, we think, oh, good, it's not cancer, it's fine. And biologically, sure, a pleomorphic adenoma is not going to spread to your lungs.
But
look where it lives. It's wrapped around the nerve that lets you show emotion, the nerve that lets you connect with other human beings, and treating it carries real significant risks to your quality of life.
so benign does not mean without consequence.
Not at all. It's a benign pathology in a malignant location. It just forces you to respect how incredibly complex the body is. Even when it's not the big C, it's still a very big deal.
That is the perfect place to leave it. A reminder that sometimes even the safe things in medicine have a really wild story to tell. A
Absolutely.
huge thank you to the medical teams who put together these kinds of detailed sources. It really lets us peek behind the curtain, or I guess, the deep fascia.
Nicely done.
And thank you for listening. Maybe next time you're in front of that mirror, you'll have a whole new appreciation for that little corner of your jaw. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.